So this is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Dr. Lawrence Okolie. A change I noticed on Instagram only yesterday. We'll talk about that in a
Nice.
minute. WBO cruiserweight champion. That bit hasn't changed. Lawrence, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. And yourself?
I'm very good, thanks. What are you up
Happy
to
New
at the
Year.
moment? You're on holiday, I believe.
No, I'm training. I'm not in where am I? I'm in South Africa right now, but yeah, I'm still getting working.
Why South Africa? Is it somewhere you'd always wanted to visit?
Yeah, it is. And there was um people here that I could train with. So even though I was here for a few days, I'll still be able to get some work in before we crack on for the final eight or 9 weeks.
How are you finding it, South Africa? You enjoying it aside from the training, obviously?
Yeah, it's good. I was quite shocked by the infrastructure. The roads are nice, and yeah, it feels like being in Europe really.
Now, I saw on Instagram you are now Dr. Lawrence Okolie, presumably a PhD. Just tell us how that all came about.
Just hard work, dedication, and sporting prowess got me the honorary doctorate at University of East London. I think it was last year. So oh gosh, it must have been like it might have even been the year before. Actually, it was like 2021. Yeah, 2021. So it's good, yeah.
How does that kind of rank among your list of achievements, your ample list of achievements over your career?
If you ask me, it's up there. If you ask my mum, it's number one. But for me,
Yeah.
it just is what it is. Um, yeah.
Did you have to do like a whole graduation thing, or did you get like a ceremony to receive
Yeah.
it? How did that work?
Oh yeah. And then they made me do a speech as well, which I was really proud of myself that I got off. I got the round of applause. But I guess they would have clapped whatever was said, really. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good. That was good.
And your mum was there, presumably, to watch the ceremony and the speech.
No, she watched it on YouTube. It was streaming live at the time, so she watched it on YouTube. But like I can't remember if it was COVID or what happened that it was restricted. But yeah, or she had work. Well, one or the other, I can't remember now.
But she was absolutely delighted.
She was, yes.
Good. I'm glad. Let's get into the boxing stuff. Now, we haven't spoken for a long time. Obviously, a lot's happened since then. So I'm going to take you back a little bit. I don't know how much you can and can't say, but obviously just stop me when you can't. Um, you initially split or left 258 management probably 8 months ago, 10 months ago now, and decided to represent yourself. Just tell us the thinking behind that move.
We had a great run and working relationship for a number of years. Fresh out of the Olympics, obviously with Anthony Joshua, Will Harvey, Fred Cunningham, KD, etc. They helped guide my early career, get me on big shows, do everything. And we got to the point now where I'm world champion, and I could see, an angle for some really educated and hardworking people that I grew up with to kind of navigate. I think, we were doing certain stuff outside of boxing that was doing very well, and a lot of those skills were transferable into boxing. So yeah, just went down that route.
I think anyone who's read your book would suggest it's probably a good move for you. You seem to very much have that business savvy. Um, when were you first aware? Because I know this was when you were still with 258. So when did you all first become aware that there was any sort of dispute about how many fights were left on the promotional contract?
Uh, at that time, obviously it's old news now, but it was like, around the April May time last year.
And how did that kind of emerge? How did you become aware of the fact that you felt there weren't any left? Matchroom felt there was one left.
Just I realized that it's just business. I think the long and short of it is, you look at a contract and it tells you exactly what you need to know. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't, contracts don't. So it was quite straightforward on our end, but obviously on their end, there was loopholes and stuff like that they wanted to try and exploit. But you know, I understand why they did it at that time. And for me, it's no hard feelings. It's a bit of time wasted, but you know, I was able to crack on with stuff outside of boxing and stay in shape. Got some good sparring in over the time. So now that we're 9, 8, however many weeks away from my next fight, I'm ready, good to go.
How frustrating was it at the time? I know there's no hard feelings now because it's all been settled. But at the time, I know there were some tweets that came out. People were kind of not concerned about you. I'm not going to try and make out like people were worried about you because you know it's a business. But people were certainly intrigued by it, the stuff about narcissists and that kind of stuff. Without going into detail about that, how frustrated were you in that period?
I mean, it was a learning experience, is what I'd say. I was frustrated, obviously. You know, anyone that has gone through anything similar to mine, or I don't wish on anyone, is an extremely frustrating and sort of revealing time. You know, it's difficult. You know, you hear boxers talking about it after they've taken a loss. You know, God willing, I never lose. But you know, you hear fighters, oh, everyone left and no one was really there, and no one checks on you and whatever else, and I didn't lose and haven't lost, but I still had the same sort of realizations. That at the end of the day, it's a sport and it's a business, and at the end of the day, you know, we are commodities as fighters until you sort of, you know, get to a certain level. You kind of just have to take a lot of stuff. But for me, it was more of a learning experience. I try not to dwell on how I felt then. I just more so think how I feel now, which is really good, really positive, and you know, ready to just crack on.
How was it ultimately settled?
With the law. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just with what's right. Like I don't want to overdo it and over egg it. Do you know what I mean? But it's just like, you know, when you know, there's people who go to university to study law, and then they get the bars and all of these other things, and they all understand what a contract is and what it says and what it means. And like anyone, you and me can argue over anything. Like I could say this is not an iPhone, and then you could say, well, it is, and then we could like whether or not I'm right or wrong, I can argue that point and say, well, actually, you know, this one might be like, and until you just get in front of people and they say, no, this is what it is. So that one there, you know, remains to be seen. But the bottom line is, you know, I'm very happy with how it all ended.
And a lot was made at the time of your personal relationship with Eddie Hearn. You'd clearly been close in the past. Has that kind of survived all of this? Are you guys still not close, but are you still on friendly terms?
Yeah, like honestly speaking, we weren't like friends. Do you know what I mean? We had a good working relationship. So on fight week, we would do what we do, you know. And he obviously, you know, has been there in terms of every fight. And he's someone that obviously I didn't speak to him directly. It was more so through 258. But, you know, I have been a fan of him and still am. You know, I watch his interviews, you know, it's like that. So it wasn't like me and him ever went for dinner or he ever called me and, you know, that kind of stuff. But it was a like cordial relationship, do you know what I mean? So, and even now, you know, we've spoken a few times amidst all of this stuff. Of course, there's been frustration on my side. You know, I don't really know how he's felt, but you know, we can still talk because at the end of the day, you know, boxing's this part of my life, and then there's more stuff to come after. So I'm not really into making mortal enemies and F you for life and whatever else. It just is where it is, you know. I understand the decisions that they made on their end, and they understand the decisions that I made on my end. And you know, when it's all said and done, like as anyway, I'm happy. They're happy. Everyone's good.
And next up for you, as we've alluded to, is David Light, who came off an upset win recently, a split decision, I believe it was. That's now, from what we've seen in the paperwork, going to take place on a boxer show on the 11th of March, a week after Fury Usyk, if that happens.
Ooh.
How excited are you to get back in the ring?
Yeah, I'd be excited to get back in the ring. For me, I'm quite level-headed when it comes to boxing, so I'm not like, oh my God, it's just, you know, I've been training, I've been sparring. I mean, I had Babic, the Savage out in Dubai with some of his friends putting in work. So I'm ready to go. Do you know what I mean? For me, it's just a matter of go in, block some punches, land some punches, and then move on.
When you say out with his friends, it makes it seem like Babbage has got this crew of like motley You know, war warriors who are just ready to drop it down at a moment's notice.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of how it happened. You know, he's one of the first people that I've seen that can come and do 8 rounds, 10 rounds. Like if you ask him to do 10 rounds, he's going to give you 10 rounds. Do you know what I mean? And he's going to give you 10 rounds. It's not like he's gonna come and he's going to give it. He's all. Then obviously while he was there, he's just like, yeah, I'll bring my friends. And then he brought some down, and they were all there. But got to the gym before me, wrapped up, taped up, ready to go. So I thought, okay. But it was good, you know, got different looks, and you know, it just reminded me, you know, it's good as well sometimes to get in, you know, like you get into a full sense of security. You know, if I spar certain types of people, I could do it all day long. 10 rounds, jab and move, and oh, I'm so good. But then, you know, when you get like game guys, it reminds you, okay, this is a real like fight and sport. Do you know what I mean? So there's no messing around. You have to be switched on, go to work. So it was good as a sort of kickstart. And then now I'll just crack on and destroy a shark.
And is the plan to complete your camp back in London?
Probably not. I think I haven't actually decided 100% where it's going to be. I'll finish the camp there, you know, the last 4 or so weeks, but the next 4 weeks, I'm just going to, you know, see where the best sparring that matches Mr. Light is, get my strength conditioning up, do whatever I got to do to get in shape, make the weight comfortably, be 12-round fit mentally, physically. I've done it for a long time now, so, you know, I know what I need to do to get to, you know, 12-round fitness and strength and explosiveness. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to it.
And with Shane McGuigan back in the UK, have you got someone working with you on the technical side while you're traveling?
It varies, if I'm honest with you. So I have had some people in Dubai, I've had some people here. So it just depends. Obviously, he's like great coach and vast experience, and he understands me and my style. So he's obviously best fit for, you know, the last bit and the most important bit of camp. But yeah, remains to be seen.
What do you make of David Light from what you've seen of him?
He has the potential to probably be the toughest guy I've boxed so far. I think Cizak and Matty Askin. It's that kind of style of um, like he knows how to box. I mean, he won the Commonwealth Games in 2014. You know, when I was just getting myself up in boxing. So he knows how to box. That's what a Commonwealth belt shows you. He also knows how to grit it out, which I saw with his fight with the upset. You know, he stood in the pocket. You know, he knew when to smother, when to step back. You know, let his hands go, good quick hands. So it's like if I'm not 100%, that's a fight that you can just slip up and lose just on someone outworking you or landing a shot when you're not paying attention. So he's someone that I know I have to be razor sharp for. Make sure that when I punch um, effectively. And stuff that I saw in my last fight, you know, like if I tried with him, it wouldn't go well. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I have to vary up the punches. I have to be constantly thinking and not go into like an autopilot kind of mode of just I'm gonna get through 12 rounds. I need to go and think for every minute that I'm in there.
Now, you've always said before any thoughts of even moving up to heavyweight, you want to unify the cruiserweight division. Is that still the goal? I know you've lost some time.
Yeah, I think now is a good time for unifications. I think, you know, last year there was mandatory after mandatory for people. I've got my own now, and as long as I'm able to come out of that one, you know, unscathed, no injuries, and a good win, I don't see why unification can't be next. You've got everyone talking about boxing Jael Pataya. Hopefully, he's up for a unification. If not, then there's the WBA champion Gulamarin, who's just come off of his mandatory win, and I think he's based in England, so he's someone that will probably be the easiest one to make. Then you've got Makabu, who I don't know what's going on with him, but the English public know who he is because of the belly fight and the fact that he was gonna box Canelo. So, you know, I think that as long as I can get through this one in March, you know, hopefully in the summer I can have a unification, and then from there I think I'll probably depends how I make the weight this time. You know, I haven't had to make the weight in like a year by the time I get into the ring, onto the scales. So it'll be interesting to see how well I make the weight this time. And if I can make it well, then, you know, we do unification. If it's too much of a struggle, then I'll just go up to heavyweight next.
Now, this is on a boxer show, as we discussed, March the 11th. Is this a one-off deal with them, or is it a long-term agreement?
We're still working through it. I think obviously as it stands now, it's just they got this fight, and then we can work from there really, and just see how the chips go, see how I perform, see how it feels. I haven't seen. I mean, I've seen their shows; they look amazing, but I haven't been in the ecosystem that they got there. So I'm interested to see.
In terms of a future promotional deal, if you like, are you looking for something long term, or are you more of the thing to do it fight by fight, as some major fighters have done in the past? Canelo, I suppose, being most recent example.
How does Canelo do it? Sorry.
So more recently, he had a 2-fight deal, I think, but generally in the last couple of years, he's done fight by fight. So whichever one can offer the most money and the most infrastructure pertinent to that particular fight.
I guess that remains to be seen. It depends what the deals look like. At the end of the day, I've accomplished a lot of what I wanted to accomplish. And I feel very blessed to be able to say I've become an Olympian, a British champion, European, Commonwealth, world champion, and I've had 2 defenses. God willing, I get the 3rd one. So I've done, a lot in terms of like, wow, like I can always say to my kids and my grandkids, like I was a world champion. So now for me, it's about who can get me unification matches and who can pay the most, because when it's all said and done, all that's going to be left is the belts and how much you made. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to see where the chips lay once again.
And the 3 major players, certainly in this country, are Boxer. And I'm not saying you restrict yourself just to this country, but it's Boxer, Queensberry, and Matchroom. Given how things ended, is a route back to Matchroom ever a possibility in your mind?
Yeah, easily. We've had our conversations, me and Eddie. It's very easy. It's like, at the end of the day, it's business. As long as I keep winning, it'll make sense for them. As long as they offer the right stuff, it'll make sense for me. So, it's like stuff sometimes looks bigger than it is online. Because this stuff doesn't usually happen. Boxers saying stuff, promoters saying stuff, interview after interview. It doesn't usually happen, but it doesn't mean that it's a hatred. Like I don't have a picture of Eddie on my wall throwing darts at it, and I hope he doesn't have that for me. So, we just see.
And we talked about your being an author, getting the doctorate, all these other things you've got going on. One of them that we haven't mentioned yet is Okolie Fit, which seems to be doing very, very well. For people who might not know, just tell them out there what Okolie Fit is and just what the next steps are for it.
Oh, well, it's a community of like people that are interested in getting and staying in shape. We do obviously monthly. Well, we rotate every week or every 2 weeks. Workout plans tailored to people. We can also help with diet and as well, and then we do group sessions as well. So especially when I'm in camp, I'll either fly back or I'll be there, and we do one-on-one, well, like group sessions where I'll take the class or one of my coaches will take the class. So it's yes, it's something that when I started, I wasn't sure how it would go, but it's been something that's it's become very dear to me, because when I'm there trying to make the weight myself and I get videos from people that have lost weight or put on muscle, it just keeps me going. So it's definitely up there with one of my favorite things outside of boxing.
And all these things you've done and achieved, you're obviously living it right now. So how aware are you? How much perspective have you got of just what you've done and the legacy you're leaving now?
I don't really feel it yet at all. Sometimes when I go back to my area or I'm caught by a parent or whatever, and they always tell my story. Oh, he used to work in McDonald's and now he's a world champ. It kind of like, oh wow, like people are actually really inspired by it, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's a hard one to sort of take, because I just live my life for, like, just okay, what can I do? Okay, I need to train hard, I need to fight. And every time I go to fight, I can believe I'm gonna win, but you don't know until it's done, So all of the wins that I've gotten, all of the belts and the stuff that I've done, even in business, when you invest, like the money that I've had to, bleed for into stuff, you don't know how it's gonna go. So once it's up and running and going, I take it every day, one day at a time, one client at a time, one sale at a time, and just see how we end up.
How much, if at all, are you thinking about life after boxing? Because whether you've meant to or not, you've put that infrastructure in place.
Yeah, it's been important for me since before I turned professional. You know, I've always been very self-confident. However, I'm quite realistic as well in the fact that this is boxing. Some of my favorite fighters have been beaten. Fighters that I've seen that I'm close friends with are unable to box now, unfortunately, and that's something I'm interested in as well. But I'll get onto that maybe later. And like even outside of that, people that I've been fans of, you know, have been at the top of the sport, selling out like, and then once they're done, it's over. Like no one stops them asking for pictures. No one says champ. They're now back to their normal name, you know, with whatever's left. So for me, I've always been very much aware of it, and I was always like interested in business as well. I think the reality is like obviously I'm blessed to be a good fighter. Do you know what I mean? But it's like I just know that anyone that has ever sponsored me or anyone that's promoted me, they to pay me anything, they must be making money. So I always thought to myself, like, okay, cool. I might be in the line. Yeah, so that always resonated with me, you know, because I was a fan, you know, before I ever was, you know, a world champion or anything like that. And I just, as I said, I just look at that and I say, outside of that, just in terms of business, when, you know, anytime I've been sponsored by anyone, anytime I've boxed on someone's show, you know, I'm maybe center of attention and might wear a badge and get people taking pictures, but there's people behind the scenes that are making money. So I always thought to myself, when I'm not able to punch hard or I'm not fit or I haven't got the durability or whatever, what am I going to do then? Where am I going to stand? You know, and I always felt like I wanted to be part of the institution in a, I don't know if that's the right word, but part of the structure rather than the commodity. Do you know what I mean? So open up franchises as opposed to being like sponsored by them only. So here you go, where am I top? I'd rather, well, actually, hold on, I'd rather actually own one or two or three or however many we build into. And it's like, okay, cool. So then when I'm finished boxing, every time someone comes to buy a salad, I'm still, do you know what I mean? Like working up for that. So and I'm in a big weight class, cruiserweight, heavyweight. You know, I don't wish it on myself, but you know, like I've dropped out of my 18, about 17 of them I've dropped. So I know that, hey, so hey, listen, hopefully my time doesn't come. Some people, their time never comes. They just do all the bashing. But I just think to myself, you know what? Just enjoy it while you're on top, but make sure that you're secure because the game don't love you. No matter what we all say, the game doesn't. It loves you while you're here and you're doing your thing. But how many former fighters, great fighters, put their lives on the line, all the excitement. Once they're done, it's like okay, cool. Like no one knows where they live, how they're living, what their mindset's like, where their health is at. You know how their family is. No one knows. And it's not for anyone to care really. You know what I mean? So it's about making sure that you got that secured. So that's always been my mindset, and it's one that I'm not ashamed of.
And from what you said earlier, you clearly care about the plight suffered by some former fighters. You seem to be hinting at the fact that you're working in that area or you're planning to. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the last year kind of showed me one dark side of boxing, which is politics, legals. Have you read your contracts? Can you afford a legal aid? Can you like? These are the stuff that I had to deal with, and those are like white collar problems. Like those are like, okay, I can thank goodness afford legal advice and whatever. But what about the fighters who can't afford it? And it's like then I've had close friends who are unable to box because of injuries that have happened in fighting. And I think, okay, well, where's their aftercare? Where's the okay, the even if it's something as simple as therapy, you know, because imagine you like you're a great interviewer. I've watched this, you've been doing this for ages, and all of a sudden you're unable to think of a question. Somehow, somewhere, I don't know, it's obviously, but somehow you get
You're
in front of the
scaring
camera
me.
and all of a sudden you can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, God forbid, I don't wish that on you at all. But it's like that all of a sudden who you are, obviously you are more than just an interviewer,
No, but
but
I know
that
what you
part of your
mean.
life is gone. And it's like, rah, what job do I do now? When people see me, they know me as Mr. Like, you know what I mean? Mr. Seconds Out and what I like. But now I'm Mr. Oh, who, and what am I? And it's like fighters speak about it over and over again. But it's like once a fighter's out of the game, it's like their voice doesn't matter as much anymore. It's like, oh, that retired guy talking about it, no big deal. So it's like, listen, while I've got even a small bit of relevance, it's just like whatever you call what I've got now, you know, if as long as the infrastructure is built properly, I'll stamp my name on it. I'll, you know, invest like, because at the end of the day, it's like I feel blessed. Like I feel it's hard to explain, you know, because it's like something that a therapist once told me is that it's something called imposter like syndrome, where you kind of feel like, why is this? I'm not supposed to be here.
You
Why
don't
is this stuff
belong, yeah.
happening? Because remember, I came out of Hackney out of nowhere. Like I was 2015. I was still in my mum's house in the area. Had no idea I'd get to the Olympics the next year. Like none, zero. It got to November. I got into the Great Britain team. By July, I'm on a flight to Rio. So it's like that happened all so quickly. It's like, wow. But all of those people that I superseded and got here, and all of those people that were training from all those countries for years, I come in and got here. Like I won the Europeans. Then I turned pro, and it's like I'm like, yo, like I'm going for it. And then I'm headlining at O2 in my first year after 12 months as a professional, less than 12 months as a professional, again in a grudge match, selling 10,000 tickets, however much it is. And no matter what happened in the fight, how it looked, I did that in a year, and I always get to like when I go past O2, I always it's fun for me. The Commonwealth of beating an undefeated fighter, then boxing a top 10 ranked fighter in my 10th fight for the British title, who was there on a roll, beating everyone in my asking. However that fight looked, I know how it looked. You know, I hardly watch it back, but that happens. So I think, right, every time I go in, I'm winning. Am I supposed to like? Why am I? And it's got to the point now. Okay, cool. European, I get mandated, and I win that against an undefeated fighter. And I was going through stuff at the time, and I still said, "I'm like, I just got to do it." One, then the world title. So I'm just going through. And I'm just thinking, what's going on? Like, am I meant to be? And then now I accepted. And I've grown into it. And I said, you know, I'm just good. Like people don't understand until they're in front of me, until they really feel it. Like when I spar people, and you know, we chat afterwards, and I fight people, and we chat. I understand like it's a different feeling in there. But anyway, I say all of that to say I feel so like fortunate and blessed and like thankful that I had the mindset or the physicality or whatever to get here. And I think it was on whatever else, but then it's like I feel what it is to be a boxer, and I feel for and I'm with boxers. Like there's not like I'm one of these other people on the other side of boxing that say I'm doing it I love but who don't know what it is to get punched, to get broken hands, broken ribs, headaches, concussion, like fight in front of people and deal with the mindset of it, like the mindset of having a fight and just wondering my pride's on the line, my health's on the line. If you lose, you're a meme. If you win, okay, we want you to box this guy next. So I kind of want to do what I can while I'm in a position to kind of like make us whatever my small change can do to help someone else make a bigger change, to make someone else make a bigger change, I'll be happy with, because boxers are abandoned. Like I'll say it now, like I don't feel no boxers are abandoned. As soon as they finish boxing or they take a loss, they're abandoned. Unless you're a top tier, you've been at the top for years and everyone knows who you are and you're a household name. Ask all of these guys who lose at European level, who lose at British title level, who have a 50-50 fight and come up unstuck. Ask my past opponents what happens to them. I meet some of them. We sit down, we have coffee, we chat. What's going on? My promoter stopped answering my calls. My manager doesn't get. And it's like, these are things that no one gets to see. It's just us fighters have to feel that burden ourselves. And like, anyway, whatever I can do to help, I'm gonna do. And it's like, I'm not just gonna talk about it. It's like we're actually putting stuff in place. It's just to make rules, it doesn't happen like overnight. I'm gonna put this money into it. It's like you need to get the right lawyers on board. You need to get the right agents on board. You need to get the right conversations going with the board and whatever else. But I just think in all other sports, I know I'm rambling. Sorry, I'm
No,
talking
it's
quite a lot
fine.
now.
It's all fascinating stuff.
Cool. But in all other sports, you look at it and you say, not all other major sports, you look and say football, you know, there's infrastructure in place where football is very hard that you hear a footballer gets duped or, you know, something happens to a footballer and they're just discarded. It's like there's obviously little things, but it's like it's not the same. Like boxing is one of the only sports where you could be on TV one week and then the next week you're back holding pads or doing PT and or whatever else. It's like, or you could be at the top world champion and then all of a sudden you're nobody. So it's like my thing is legal, of course, very, very important for fighters. But I think the mental health aspect, we all talk about it, but it's a real thing. Like I said, the abandonment, you know, everyone pats you on the back and says, "You're the man. You're going to beat this guy." And if you don't beat him, they're off. So it's like, yeah. So I think mental health, I think legals, 100%. I think somehow working this insurance stuff as well, because when fighters are damaged doing what they love, you know, there's no, like, I haven't done enough research to say there's no, so I don't want to get anyone, you know, upset, but there's not as much like aftercare and help. But anyway, it's coming.
Good to hear. Lawrence, really, really appreciate your time. Look forward to catching up in person when you're back in the UK. And best of luck with the rest of training camp.
Thank you. I'm on it. Catch up.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.